Welcome into this week in Missouri Politics Daily Update. Today I am joined by probably one of the best, well-dressed best men in the Capitol, and that would be Secretary of State Denny Hoskins. Sir, thank you for joining us.
Hey, thanks for having me.
So only a couple people know this, but Denny and I go way back. Denny provided me a placard back in 23, basically telling me I was the greatest intern ever.
That's true.
There's not many other interns out there with it, so suck it to all the other Senate interns. But no, it was so much fun. Denny was the first person I ever interned with, and that office is just great. Kelly and Amanda and all the people I'd see on a daily basis. It's just such a great office.
Yes, and you were a great intern.
I
and look at you now.
Yeah, we're on opposite sides of the desk now. So, but no, it was great, and I told Scott, I said you were going to be one of my priority guests on the show.
Well,
so
good.
I told him, I said we needed him
that.
on. So, but you've got some big stuff going on right now. You won a race. You won a pretty important race.
Yes. Yeah.
So tell me about that Secretary of State's race, because it seemed like everybody and their moms was in that race.
Yes.
And you pulled out a really impressive win out of that with everybody in there. You had a real strong support base. So tell me about that race. How'd that go? What was your strategy? You know, what happened there?
Well, yeah, I mean, we had $300,000 for a statewide race, which is $300,000. It's a lot of money. It's just not a lot of money for a statewide race. And so literally we'd been on the campaign trail for a year and a half, 2 years. I say between the end of, or February 1st of 2024 through the end of July, Michelle and I went to about 150 events across the state. Pachyderms, We the People, Lincoln Day, Republican Women, any Republican conservative event that we could go to.
You were everywhere in that campaign. I remember I'd see your Facebook or your Twitter or whatever, and you were all over the state.
Yes.
And it was pretty impressive to see that.
Yeah, I knew that I would not have enough money to be up online everywhere and on TV and everything else. And so I just went the old grassroots handshake campaign way. And so, Michelle, we usually take the Amtrak down on Wednesday evening and right from Warrensburg to Jeff City.
That's such a great ride.
Oh, it is a great ride.
Anybody at UCM, if you're interning in the Capitol or working in Jeff City, try to take it at least one time because it's so much fun. I know David Pierce is a huge advocate of that.
He is. Yeah, and you get free Wi-Fi, and you can just be on your phone or a computer or just look at the countryside. Yes. So she would come down. I'd pick her up. Then on Thursday after session, we would hit the trail and go to Lincoln Days all over the place. And, sometimes we were in southeast Missouri. Sometimes we were in Springfield, Joplin, St. Joe, Hannibal, Columbia, Moberly, all over the place. And so we'd leave on Thursday afternoon and go to as many of them as they were.
Yeah.
And then get home late Saturday night or Sunday. And then Monday morning we'd start off again, and I'd head toward Jeff City, at least while we were in session. So I had a great staffer too, Carson Wymuth. He helped out, and we had a little campaign van that we drove around in. It was 2-seater. Very rough ride, but I was glad to have it. He and I built a rack in the back so we could throw 4x8s up top and some fence posts in the bottom. And
those are always the biggest pain, is transporting those signs.
Oh yeah,
because you just never have the space for them.
That's right.
But you also had a really good ground team of just people like around my age, younger.
I did.
You had a really good active team of people there.
Yes.
People from I think it was usually the Warrensburg area.
Yes.
Stuff, people who knew you personally.
Yeah.
But you had a really good team there.
We had a lot of people reach out, grassroots folks, and they'd come up with what they called the golden ticket, and whether it was Franklin County or Perry County or down the Boot Hill or Johnson County, and so they had what they called a golden ticket. It was printed off on gold paper. And they had who the conservative choices were for every race. And I was fortunate enough, based on what I wanted to do in the Secretary of State's office and my conservative voting record in the House and the Senate, that they got behind me. And so I had one lady from Perry County call me and say, hey, I need 500 of your lit pieces. And I said, what in the heck do you need 500 lit pieces for? And they said, we're going door to door for you. These next 2 Saturdays, we've got people are going door to door. And I had people here in Cole County. There was a group, about 5 or 6 folks, and they were going door to door for 2 hours a night, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday from like 4 to 6, starting in April and going all the way until primary day in August.
Yeah.
And when you just have that huge groundswell of support from grassroots folks, things really took off. I mean, obviously, we can't compete with the governor's race or attorney general spent a lot of money.
Yeah, that was a big one.
Yes, that was a big one. U.S. Senate was quite a bit of money. I mean, just as Hawley, was even, we knew he was going to win the primary, but he got started early. So we really had to be creative with the way to get our name out.
Well, so everybody's always a little bit, obviously in Missouri it's a bit different for our politics here, but everybody's a little bit different from their primary game to their general election game. So did you take like a little bit of, obviously I think Kehoe took like a 5-minute break and then went back on the trail the next day.
Yes.
But did you take a little bit of break to enjoy, just getting through that and finally having that great victory there, or did you hit the trail again?
We pretty much hit the trail immediately again. Missouri is a ruby red state.
Yep.
But I didn't want to take anything for granted. So we literally, in my opinion, we just outworked the competition as far as going to all these events, and we could do that. We're empty nesters.
Yeah.
And whatnot, and then we had in the primary. We had an 8-way race, and the so-called election experts picked, I think, any one of us 8 to win, whether it was a social media influencer in Valentina or
who's now in Texas running for Congress.
Yes, she's running for Congress down in Texas.
Yeah.
I don't know how she got from Missouri running for Secretary of State last August to running for Congress in
I thought
Texas.
there was like time requirements for how long you had to be in the state, but maybe not in Texas. I don't know.
I have no idea. and then we had, current state reps, current state senators, current county clerk. We had a former congressional staffer and the former Speaker of the House. And, all those people are good people, good candidates. But we had a plan, stuck to that plan, and fortunately came out. I thought that 25% would win it. And we ended up with about 25%.
Yeah, you did.
But I thought second place would probably be in the low 20s as well, and fortunately, second place was at 18%. So we won by about 50,000 votes in the primary.
Yeah, no, I clearly remember this. That whenever I was working for you, I remember Michelle saying, "I think this is the year that is like perfect for Denny to run." And she turned out right.
Right.
It's just so funny because like all these people started joining in.
Yes.
And then you just won that with all the split votes, and it was just. I was like, I remember that, and I was like, Michelle was right.
Yeah, she was right. She's right most of the time.
But so you won that race, and obviously you won the general, and you had to come in and you had to fill in some staffing spots.
Yes.
But you've got a really capable staff over there.
Yes.
Talk to me about. You got Matt as your chief of staff.
Yes, Matt Alsager.
You got a former Missouri Times alumni, Rachel Dunn,
yes,
over there, who's
that's
just
right.
fantastic.
Yeah, communication director. Yes, Rachel's great.
You got Amanda Bell as your
legislative director.
Yep, yep. And she was fantastic. And then you got Michael O'Donnell.
Yes, Michael O'Donnell.
That was a really great pickup. I mean, he's a fantastic rep. And then they told me he's going to be joining the team. I was like, honestly, that seems like the spot he's in now. It seems like something he's super interested in.
Yes, with former state rep Mike O'Donnell, and obviously he's currently he's my securities commissioner, which I appointed. I mean, his background is in bond trading, and so he can talk the lingo on the securities division.
Yeah.
He can talk the talk and walk the walk. I mean, the guy's literally a Boy Scout. I think he still does Boy Scout type of things, and so I was so lucky to have him as part of my staff. And then the day after I was elected, they said, "Hey, we need to debrief you on some things, two big things." I said, "Okay, what's going on?" They said, "Well, number one, here's a list of all the lawsuits that the Secretary of State's office is involved in, people suing the Secretary of State." I'm like, "Oh, wow." I said, "Well, what attorneys do we have working on this?" And they said, "Well, we've got 8 spots for attorneys, and we have half of an attorney right now on staff."
Huh.
And so I've been fortunate to pick up Clifton Davis and Ryan Hart as my chief counsel and deputy chief counsel, and so we're starting to work through that. And then they said the second thing is we get cyber attacked every day.
Really?
In the Secretary of State office. Yeah, hackers trying to get into the
archives?
voter records, business
okay.
services, because if you file an LLC or partnership, that's where you come. But trying to get into that personal information, and so I said, well, those are two good things to know. I didn't campaign on any of those 2 things, but they are probably 2 of the most important things now actually inside the office, is making sure that our records are very secure. We store, when you mentioned archives, we store all the records for the House and the Senate, any state record. That's where we have record retention and archives, and then plus all that personal business information, and then all the voter records. And so we do not want someone hacking into our system, which is one of the reasons we have our own IT department as well.
Yeah, what it seemed like during the campaign, what it seemed like anything the Secretary of State candidates really talked about was the elections and libraries.
Yes.
And then you come in, you're like, oh, well, and there's all these other things that are there that
That's
really
right.
not a whole lot of people think about.
That's right. Yeah, not a lot of people think about administrative rules or the state library, archives, securities, elections, business services. And so on the campaign trail, when I'd say, hey, I'm running for Secretary of State, people would be like, hey, maybe this is a dumb question, but like, does they do something with our elections?
Scott would always joke, he's like, I guarantee you most people still think that Condoleezza Rice is Secretary of State.
Yeah, well, that's true.
So
that is true.
But yeah, you never. I mean, I was really fortunate when I first came over here. Rachel emailed me, and she asked me to come over and take a tour of the building. And if you haven't been to the Kirkpatrick building, it is fantastic. There's so much cool stuff in there, so much state history, the archives, everything alone in there is just awesome. And so if you ever go over there, please do. You're also going to be supporting a building named after a former UCM alum.
That's right.
So anything to help out we UCM folks, that would be just fantastic.
James C. Kirkpatrick.
But yeah, the building itself is fantastic. It's really well put together. And they told me that like the black lining around like half the building is built into the hill there.
Okay.
And so like they told me and Rachel that if the building like had an earthquake or something and it split, that side on the other side of the black lining would be perfectly fine.
That's right.
Which is crazy to think about.
It is.
But
it is.
Yeah, when you think about Secretary of State, you really most of the time it's elections that people talk about, and sometimes in the last couple of years it was the libraries that were a big deal.
Right.
But yeah, you don't really think about there's the business licensing,
Yes.
there's the archives, and then like with the elections you obviously have all the voter data.
That's right.
And all that sensitive. And so yeah, the cyber attacks, I would never have thought the Secretary of State's office would have been a key target for cyber attacks, but that is really interesting that you come in there and you're like,
it is, and we had our former chief information officer retire at the end of December, I think, after 35 years of state government. So we promoted from within. We've got a new CIO. We're currently looking for a couple other IT positions in the cybersecurity realm. But it's like I said, I didn't think about that on the campaign trail, nor is it something that I thought on day one that, hey, we got to deal with cyber attacks and we got to deal with lawsuits.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about what's new over there. So obviously, you I think a couple weeks ago you had a really cool demonstration down in the Capitol for voter registration as as election machines. But you also got some new programs going on. Tell me about those.
We do. Yeah. So I guess first of all, as part of the recertification process on election machines, there's a in-state statute that lists what we have to test for, and so. One of the election machine companies came up for a software update and wanted to recertify their machines. So we looked at this, they've got this printout, this checklist that we have to go through of things that we can check for. And I said, hey, have we ever had like a mock election or a public demonstration of these election machines? And they said, no. And I said, well, why don't you see if we can do that? So we contacted the election machine company, and they said, yeah, we do that in other states. We'd be glad to do that. So last Tuesday, we brought them down. It wasn't a great day because all the snow and the cold and everything else, but we invited the media, we invited the public, and we invited elected officials to come down, ask questions, basically kind of kick the tires of these election machines, fill out these sample ballots, see if you could trick the election machine into taking a ballot or not taking a ballot or something. And so I said, well, we ought to do this on a regular basis and as part of the recertification process. And so we're in the process of proposing a rule. We go through the regular process in order to make that part of the recertification process to actually have a public demonstration of those election machines. And then some of the other great things we're doing, one of the things I said on the campaign trail, made a campaign promise, I'd hire a director of election integrity. So we hired he was the Pettis County clerk out of
Nick Lestrada,
Nick,
another really great pickup there.
Yep, Nick, and put him in charge and said, hey, we want to work on cleaning up the voter rolls. So he's been working with the local election authorities, the LEAs, in order to clean up their voter rolls. And I think we're going to make some announcements where we've helped the LEAs take off 140,000 people off the voter rolls.
Okay.
And so we're very excited about that, about cleaning up the voter rolls, taking off people that hadn't voted in the last two federal elections. So they haven't voted in the last 4 years, and because maybe they've moved or something else, the local election authority sends them letters to verify if they're still there.
Yeah.
Many of those letters come back, and so we know, well, they're not living there anymore because it came back. The forwarding has expired. But looking at that, so that's another thing that we've done just as far as the election integrity part.
No, yeah, I mean, you've got. Is there? Well, I guess I should say, is there any prioritized legislation in this session right now that you guys are kind of keeping an eye on or anything?
We're
I know
looking.
Rick just perfected his SB 22, which is the ballot amendment stuff.
Senate Bill 22. Rick did a good job on that. I mean, that was Rick's idea, and he'd come to me with that, and I talked to the Minority Floor Leader Doug Beck too, and I said, hey, if the legislature is going to change state statute, we prefer the language that Rick has in there.
Yeah.
And so looking at that, Senator Ben Brown has some legislation about foreign money coming into the state and things influencing the election. So we're keeping an eye on that. We have our IT bill, Representative Banderman in the House, and then Senator Huff in the Senate. So every time that you form an LLC or dissolve an LLC, there's a $5 business fee charge. And so that business fee charge goes to fund our IT department.
Okay.
And we have a separate IT department, separate from OA ITSD, and so we'd like to keep it that way. It sunsets in 2026. I think Banderman's bill extend that $5. We're not asking for an increase. It's been $5 since the beginning of time. We're not asking for any more than $5. We're just asking for an extension of that sunset. So Banderman's bill, I think, extends it to 2030. Senator Huff's bill takes off the sunset. So that's what we're really focused on. But this first year, just trying to kind of learn the ropes, drinking from a fire hose, and trying to stay in my lane. But I've quickly figured out that the Secretary of State's office just covers so much. And we talk about elections, we talk about securities fraud, we talk about businesses, we talk about state libraries, archives, administrative rules, and so my lane is very wide. I found out, but I'm really enjoying it. And when we talk about the team too, brought over Claudia Sands.
Another great one.
Yes. So everybody knows her from Brightspeed, CenturyLink, and on down the line for 45 years. She had been lobbying, and so we contacted her. She just told me yesterday, came up to me and said, I love this job. I said, great, I'm glad we want you here. And so we've really put together a good executive team with Clifton and Matt and Claudia, and then Ryan's been helping out, and then we picked up the directors, with Nick Lestrada and Amanda Bell and our election director, Chrissy Peters. And so I've got a lot of great directors. I can't even name them all, but they're doing a great job and starting to implement, kind of my vision for the Secretary of State's office.
Yeah, when you said you came in, you were missing a good bit of the attorneys, though.
Yes.
You really do get to make that office your own, though. You're coming in, you're really rebuilding a lot of that staff and a lot of that infrastructure there. That's got to feel really reassuring to you that you at least got people there that you've put there, you can trust them and good staff members.
That's right. I found, I brought in some folks, and then some of the folks that were there are great people as well, and they've been around a long time. Our director or chief editor of Admin Rules has been there, I think, since 1993 or something like that. So there's a lot of institutional knowledge there. John Dogan, our state archivist, has been there I think 16 or 17 years as well. So there's a lot of institutional knowledge, a lot of good people just up and down the line. And one of the things that I'll tell you a story, and you know how I am, Jake. So I've never met a stranger. And so when I came in, and I wanted to meet everybody, right? And so I took a tour and kind of fly-by tour around real quick the office, all 3 floors, and meet people in January.
Probably a good idea for the new Secretary of State to know who's working in his building.
I thought so. So I got invited Or actually, I went down to one of the departments and came into a receptionist, and they're like, "Oh, the director's back here." I said, "I don't want to meet the director. I've already met the director." I said, "I just want to go around to the cubes and meet everybody here." And so I've done that once in the month of February. My plan is to continue just to go around and meet just the everyday folks in every department once a month. We've got I think Employee Appreciation Day is coming up next week, and so I've got something that I'm gonna, I think, buy some hot dogs and chips and drinks, and I bought a grill, and I'm gonna grill out for the employees. And this is gonna be on my dime, not the Secretary of State. Secretary of State's not paying for any of this. Be no line item budget for hot dogs, chips, and pop.
With how General Revenue is looking at you. You're gonna be cutting it with the hot.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, this is all coming from me. But we're gonna have a little employee appreciation barbecue over the lunch hour, and I'm gonna be out there in my barbecue apron, and barbecuing hot dogs, and just meet with the folks.
Better hope this weather stays up then. You know.
I know. I haven't looked to see what it's gonna be like next week, but hopefully it'll be nice.
But I mean, I guess the thing that's just really interesting about the Secretary of State's office is that, like we've been talking about, there's so much in there that you don't know, like, that really not the average person knows about. Really, most people don't, like, talk or really discuss about the Secretary of State's role. It's kind of like that with, I mean, the Treasurer's got, like, a big title, but when you look at it, like, Treasurer ultimately doesn't do as much as, like, some people would think. Like, people think on federal terms.
Yes.
So when they think to Secretary of State, you think you're going to go bomb Pettis County or something like that.
Right.
But no, it's always been so interesting, though, that the Secretary of State's office is just, it's got so much there, but you never hear any, like, major drama about it. They always do a great job there. And I think that with the team you've got this year, or the team that you've got right now, it's just going to go really well for you. Yes. I would suspect with those people.
I totally agree. We've added some key pieces, and then the key pieces, whether Lisa in HR, whether it's Chrissy, the election director, whether like I said, I know I'm going to miss Paul, who's our new CIO. I mean, there's a lot of just good people at the Secretary of State's office, and they've been there. A lot of them have been there, whether it was Republican or Democrat. They were there with Ashcroft, they were there with Kander, they were there with, and some have been there with Blunt, some Carnahan, and so a lot of folks that they're nonpartisan, and so I mean, a lot of them, if you went and visited with them, you wouldn't know if they're Republican or Democrat. They're just there to do their job.
I would like to chime in and say that my mom and stepfather worked in that building when Blunt was Secretary of State, long time ago, and they loved working there.
Yes, well, that's good to hear.
But onto a subject that is very important to Kelton as he runs our illegal sports book.
Yes.
So sports betting has been, what I've seen so far, has been delayed from what some people thought was going to be the summer. And right now I've seen some people say the fall or something like that. So obviously, I don't think anybody can say you don't care about sports betting because you've been in that building for several years trying to get it passed.
Yes. I filed the First Amendment when the SCOTUS said, hey, you can do sports betting, and I said, okay, well, and it was toward the end of session. I had some amendments drafted that would have done that.
Yeah. But so give me your reason. So what was the process there? So I saw a bunch of stuff about emergency rules.
Yes.
I saw a bunch of stuff about how it doesn't match with the emergency rules. I saw you had a piece out today kind of explaining your thought process. But, tell our listeners exactly, what's your thought process and how did you come to the decision you did?
Yeah, so the Missouri Gaming Commission sent us two sets of rules, one emergency rules and one regular rules. And so I met with our legal team and said, okay, well, what does that mean if something's an emergency? Is that defined in state statute that something's an emergency? And so we pulled up state statute. There's 4 things that say that, hey, makes an emergency. And number 1, it says if there's an immediate danger to basically the health and welfare of Missourians. Well, if you say it deals with the immediate danger of the health and welfare of Missourians, and that's because we need to move sports betting to go active to June or July versus September, October. I mean, it doesn't fall under what the state statute said defines an emergency. And so we visited and talked and said that, hey, this is not an emergency. This should just go through the regular rulemaking process. Now, the regular rulemaking process, Sportsbook has to go live by December 1st, according to the IP process. And so it's still, that would be the latest date that Sportsbook goes active in the state of Missouri. But by going through the regular rulemaking process, it allows for public comment.
I did see that you were very adamant about getting a public comment
30 days, and also would allow JCAR, which is the Joint Committee of Republicans and Democrats, senators and reps, to look at those rules. Versus if I said, yes, this is an emergency, we have to, people need to bet in June or July versus September or October, then there would be no public comment and it would not go through JCAR. And so I'm like, I want to be consistent. I take my job as Secretary of State very, very seriously. And so looking at the true definition in state statute, in state law, what it makes an emergency, it didn't qualify. Now, the governor sent me something a couple weeks ago about egg drop syndrome, and it was an emergency order, and I had no idea what egg drop syndrome was.
Never heard of it.
It's when chickens lay basically soft shell eggs, so those eggs don't travel very well, and currently I don't believe there's a cure for soft shell, so this would allow them the Missouri to test those chickens faster and do some processes. Does that affect the welfare and well-being of the state of Missouri and Missourians? Well, our food supply is very important.
And eggs right now are
sky high.
Yeah, right. Yeah,
sky high. So yes, and so I was like, yes. Does this constitute an emergency according to Missouri state law? Yeah, it does. So, I don't have any problem with Sportsbook. I look forward to making my first bet that the Chiefs are going to win the Super Bowl. But I also had a lot of people reach out and say, hey, and even Dirk Deaton, the House Budget Chairman, when he was going through the DESE budget, House Bill 2, page 39, it said that the state of Missouri for education, they were expecting $1,084,000 next year. Well, in his own words, I think he said, I need to go back and rewatch those pro sportsbook commercials that were on this fall, because I guarantee I don't seem to remember that it was just $1 million. I think that they said $35 to $50 million a year. And so, so I hate to break it to everybody, but DESE is planning on $1,084,000 going toward education. So it's not going to be a windfall to education or sportsbook since sportsbook passed. But I had some folks reach out and said, hey, we would like the opportunity to publicly comment on that, because we felt we've been sold a raw bill of goods that, we heard a lot of promises on that, and education's only getting $1,084,000 a year. That's a far cry from $35 million to $50 million. So with the regular rulemaking process, just like everything else that goes through that initial petition process, they will have that opportunity to do that. And they could still, the Missouri Game Commission this election's been certified since mid-December. So they can still go ahead and figure out what type of application they're going to have for Sportsbook and what kind of rules and all the surrounding states besides Oklahoma actually have Sportsbook. Most of those have tax rates about 20%. The initial petition that passed only has 10% tax. But this isn't the first rodeo. We're the show me state. We like people to show us what to do, and then we'll kind of copycat that. So they'll have plenty of time. And my expectation is that Sportsbook would probably go live this fall.
That's what I was wondering. As long as I can bet on the Royals going to the World Series, which Scott's not going to like that I said that, but as long as I can bet that the Royals are going to go to the World Series unlike another team, I'd be a happy man.
Right.
I'd be a happy man. So that's just what I was curious about, was in the end, at what point or when is it going to get put into place? I think that's really what people are just wanting to know at this point. Yeah,
I would expect sometime this early fall. According to the Constitution, it has to go live no later than December 1st. Again, Missouri's not the first state to legalize Sportsbook and have it go active, so we've got a lot of other states to learn from. But I think it's very important. Like I said, I took an oath as Secretary of State to do the job and follow the Missouri Constitution and follow Missouri state law, and that's what I'm doing. I know that there's some people that want to bet and are upset that they won't be able to bet earlier, but it's not an emergency. And so basically, you're asking me to disregard state law, what state law says, and just kind of overlook that. Oh, well, this is an emergency that we should be able to bet in June or July versus September or October.
Yeah. Oh, you were at our last night's event.
Yes.
Right? Yep.
Yeah. Great event.
Fantastic event. If you didn't have an apartment in town, where would you be staying though? If you had to be put up somewhere,
I would definitely be at the Courtyard Marriott.
I think that everybody would agree with that, except maybe Kelton. Kelton went home, so he didn't stay at the Courtyard.
He did
Marriott.
not? Okay.
No, he did not. It's
All
pretty sad. But I think most people who were there last night probably stayed at the Courtyard Bar Marriott.
Yes.
If they stayed at the Capitol Plaza, I'm very sorry. We also want to thank our amazing sponsor, United Fiber, best rural broadband in the Great Northwest. But yeah, last night's event was fantastic, wasn't it?
It was fantastic, and kudos to you all for putting that on. I know I put up for auction a couple different things. One was, I think, dinner with Michelle and I. So, we left before that was auctioned off. So you just cross your fingers that somebody actually bids on that. And I heard that they did. So that's good.
I think, yeah. They did the live auction for the dinners and all that kind of stuff.
Yes, yes.
No, I thought it was fantastic. We're currently waiting right now to get the total number, but from what I heard last night, we did actually really well with that auction number. But no, it was a fantastic evening. It was so great seeing so many different people there. The governor decided to show up.
That's right.
Speaker Patterson, President Pro Tem Cindy O'Loughlin
Yes.
was there. Obviously, the lady of the hour, Judge Russell, was there.
That's right.
It was from a lot of people came up to me and told me that this was one of the best events that we
I would
put on.
agree, and I don't know what all lady senators and lady reps were in charge of this. I know
Senator Maggie Nurenberg was
Senator
the primary
Nurenberg. Yeah,
lead on that.
she did an excellent job.
It was fantastic.
And as far as getting items to auction and things like that, so yeah, kudos to Maggie and the other senators and reps.
I mean, it was last night. If you weren't able to make it last night, I truly am sorry for you because it was obviously it's a once a year event, but it was truly a once a year event. It was spectacular. There were so many people there. It was so much fun. The only thing we didn't get to see was Representative Carrie Engel and Representative Aaron Crossley do their live karaoke singing.
No.
But I think Mike Deering won that, so that's going to be pretty entertaining to see what songs he picks for him. But, I mean, just some quick shout-outs real quick. Obviously, Senator Maggie Nurenberg and her fantastic staff put together a great auction last night. I didn't bring them, but I did make sure to place a bid down on the campaign posters, and I got a fantastic Kit Bond poster and a 1982 Margaret Woods for State Senate poster.
Nice.
Or maybe it was regular Senate. I can't remember. It was too fun last night. But we had a great time last night. Also, just a huge shout out to all the women legislators in the Capitol. You make things turn around in that building, and you make things work. And frankly, I don't know what we'd do without many of you. Also, all the sponsors we had last night, it was just so great to have so many people reach out and say we wanted to help out with this event. And so it was just great. Kelton obviously had been a point man for that. And so Kelton is extremely grateful for having all that help and all that support out there. And so is Scott and I. Also, all the people who offered up dinners, obviously. Our Secretary of State offered up a great dinner. Chad Perkins did too. Senator Curtis Gregory, Dane Deal. Did you hear about Dane Deal and Curtis Gregory's thing that they were offering like farm work?
Well,
a
day farm work. I did have some people ask me like, "Hey, if I bid on that, do you think they'd clean my house for me?" Or
well, I think Scott wanted them to clean their pool, but I don't think he got that one.
Yeah, would they go door knocking for a day for me?
That would be funny.
Yes.
That would be funny having if I was a Democrat, I would have bid on that and have them come knock.
That's
for
right.
me.
Do you know who got that? I don't know who got that.
I don't know actually.
Yeah.
I can't remember. I didn't. The ones that I was really interested in seeing who bet on was the Day in the Boot Heel with Senator Jamie Berger and Scott and Representative Cameron Parker and a couple other people. And I think I can't remember who got the Kelton. Do you know who got the main bet on that one?
I do not. I wasn't paying attention.
I can't remember. Originally, the bet was at the bid was at a good number, but then somebody was able to talk Senator Doug Beck and joining in, and so
I
they got
gotcha.
a very good bid on that, and so Senator Doug Beck and somebody else will be joining those great folks down in the booth.
Is that going to be like a day of noodling? You know, like
I think
we're catching catfish by hand?
I
or
would love
what?
to see Senator Beck do catching catfish by hand. I think that'd be fantastic. Honestly,
I agree.
I'd love to see Scott do it by hand. I think me and Kelton will probably have to get a video of that. If
Oh,
that
most
happens.
certainly.
But I think they're going like the rodeo. And,
Okay.
And so,
All right.
But I think that'd be a fun one. But just everybody who offered up dinners or times of service or anything like that last night, we really appreciate it. We were able to put on such a great event and had so many great people there for it. Also, big shout out to our boss, Scott Faughn, who can just put together events like nobody else. Honestly, at this point, if you're looking for a wedding to get set up, just call us. I think we could probably put together the best wedding you can think of. And finally, final shout out to our Lady of the Hour, Judge Russell, who
Yes.
gave a fantastic State of the Judiciary today.
did.
And was just a great person to honor last night. No better person I could think of for that Stateswoman of the Year award. But enough of that. Secretary of State, I want to thank you so much for taking
Yes,
the time
thanks
to
for
come
having
over
me,
here.
Jake.
Thank you, sir.
Yep, my pleasure.
Just tune in. Actually, another big announcement. This is probably the last time we are in this studio. Kelton, Scott, and I, and our group of amazing workers have been working on a new studio, which we should be in, I think, next week. Kelton, what's the timeline?
The new studio will be ready by next week.
Yeah, it's gonna be fantastic. We're gonna have so much more room for all the amazing things you've sent Scott. So many more signs will be up, so many more knickknacks, and so Scott's excited about it, Kelton's excited about it, and I'm excited about it, and I think our guests on the show will also be excited about it. So thank you so much for joining us, and thank you, sir.
Yep, thank you.